Welcome to Bezgaiath War College.
Ah!
Here
I'm
we
so
are.
excited to be here.
Yes, we are. Welcome to the fourth wing. Here we are on our very first week of reading Fourth Wing. I don't even have my dust jacket on here, but here we are. Dana and I are very, very, very excited about this one. And I would say, if I would venture to guess, that we're both maybe a little bit nervous about this one because there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, and it's worth noting right here at the very beginning, we both have already read both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. We're highly anticipating Onyx Storm come January. So we are going to do our best to give a series spoiler-free majority podcast, and then go into the classifieds, the redacteds later on to kind of form those connections into Iron Flame from the stuff we know.
And that being said, we might look at the camera like, hint. If there's something that we feel like we can really just like hint towards, but it's not super, super important or giving anything away, we might go, hint.
Keep that in mind for later.
There are a couple different things
That's
that
suspicious.
yeah, well, there are going to be a couple things that we're going to call out that pertain to Iron Flame, but you won't know how. So that's what we're going to do. So yes, we will go on with our normal podcast. We will do a description or like a chapter by chapter quick recap. We will do our normal go through our podcast. And then at the end, like Dana said, we will be doing a redacted classified version. A little quick talk about all the things that we caught after reading Iron Flame and then going back and doing a reread. Because holy hell. I highly
It's
recommend.
crazy.
I highly recommend doing a reread. I was so bored. I remember the first time I read this in the very beginning, the first couple chapters, I was pretty bored. But when I reread it, I wanted to highlight every single word. I was like, all of this is important. Every single thing that I'm reading right now is important.
And it's crazy how important it is. Because you won't think it just by reading this regularly.
No. So, let's go with our quick little, was it, 10,000 view on top of a dragon over the chapters for week 1.
Let's go. Violet Sorrengail's life takes a sharp turn when her mother, General Lilith Sorrengail, decides that instead of becoming a scribe, Violet will train as a dragon rider at Bezgaiath War College, a place where survival is far from guaranteed. Violet's not exactly built for the brutal physical challenges, but what she lacks in strength, she makes up for in smarts and determination. The first major hurdle, her first round of combat challenges. This is a war college after all, so learning how to fight and knowing how to spot your opponent's weaknesses are a must. Against all odds, Violet uses her cunning to make it through, even though she faces hostile classmates who think she doesn't quite belong. Among them is Xaden Ryerson, the brooding son of a rebel leader who's got his own reasons for watching Violet closely, and they're not exactly friendly. Then there's Dane Atos, Violet's childhood friend, who's super protective and wants nothing more than to see her safe, but his overbearing concern is starting to is starting to feel more like a cage than comfort, especially when Violet needs to prove she can handle herself.
Fuck Dane.
Oh my god, I hate saying his name.
Fucking Dane. Every time. It's gonna be.
It's gonna be us rolling our eyes.
Can you safely say that you were ever buying her interest in Dane even the first time around?
So when I first experienced Fourth Wing, it was through the audiobook, and it was what I was like listening to on my way to and from work. So, given like the time of day I'm really up and doing those things, I did kind of buy into it at first. And I bought into it in the sense of like he is Gale, but he is more of a love interest to her, and she really wants to love him. And it wasn't until like a certain chapter when I'm like, oh, actually though, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we don't like Dane.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is a toxic relationship we stay away from.
It's funny that you bring up Gale because, okay, so obviously Rebecca Yarros has been very clear that Harry Potter's like an influence to this series, okay? So Harry Potter's like a thing. But also Hunger Games is totally a thing. And I don't think I've heard her necessarily say that, but it's phew, the way that they are so flippant about death and how they're conscribing children and, or well, teenagers and all that. It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Are they teenagers? I guess maybe they're like 18, 20. I could be wrong.
I want to say she's 20.
Okay. Yeah, I want to say.
But still, I mean, in a sense, they are conscribing children because, and we'll get into this, the marked ones.
Poor Mark. Anyway.
Who are...
Yeah.
But I think before we even get into chapter 1 itself, we go into the little preamble. Because I have no other words to say it. The following text has been faithfully transcribed from Navarian into modern language by Genesia Neilwort, curator of the Scribe Quadrant at Besguyeth War College. All events are true, and names have been preserved to honor the courage of those fallen. May their souls be condemned to Malak. So we're reading, granted, yes, we're reading from Violet's point of view. These are transcribed events. Mm-hmm. This is history.
Mm-hmm. And it has caused many people to wonder if any of the main characters make it through the entire series.
The entire 5-book series. Oh, God.
Uh-huh. And it also kind of sets the stage right away about how important dragons are. The very first, because at the beginning of every chapter, we get like a little quote from some type of scribe text, essentially, that Violet has basically like committed to memory. Some of it's scribe text, some of it's some other stuff, but it's always texts that are important to Violet. And the first one is: a dragon without its rider is a tragedy. A rider without their dragon is dead. So you get the kind of power imbalance that's going on right now. That technically a dragon can live without its rider, but a rider's going to die if their dragon dies.
And that's A, absolutely insane. But B, each time I hear that quote, I freak out a little.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because it's that TikTok sound. Welcome to the fourth wing. Mm-hmm. 100%.
And it just gets me so excited.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy to be here.
In the very beginning, there is a lot that's dropped on you. Like, it is like gold in the first chapter, I feel like. There's so much that just kind of gets like dropped on you really quick. Not only to set the scene, build the world, but also there's like some hints towards Iron Flame in there right away, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of just character backstory being thrown at you. Like, you get Violet's entire family dynamic and family tree right at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so you figure out her mom is a general, a very high-ranking general, which is very interesting. I can't imagine having a mother who is a general. And Violet grew up in this war college, essentially, in this city that the war college is located in. And so she knows, it's very interesting. Mm-hmm. I've noticed, she knows all the professors. She knows everybody of high rank.
Yeah, she knows everybody because and it's presumed that like her mom was a writer in the writers quadrant with these other writers who are now all generals. But not even that, her dad was a scribe. She's trained her whole life to be a scribe. Spoiler alert, she's not a scribe anymore.
And this is an overarching, like, kind of thing that we still don't for sure really know. Why? Why is she not a scribe? Why is her mom forcing her into the writer's quadrant?
Why?
And what's really interesting is
All these words.
her mom actually seems to have a lot more pride in her than Violet gives her any credit for. I'm gonna find it
Than
for.
anybody gives her any credit for.
Mhm.
So we like jump in. We are on conscription day, which conscription day is the day of basically choosing your quadrant. Who are you going to become? It's like the sorting hat, but not as cool because you're not getting magically told where to go. You kind of get you get a choice unless you're Violet and you're being told you're a writer or I will drag you over to the writer's quadrant.
And there are tests for every quadrant, I believe, because
Yes.
so they have to pass tests. And my guess is, I think if they don't pass the test, they end up going to the infantry. I think is how it works. That's where like everyone else falls.
Possibly.
Okay, we're not quoting Bonnie on that, but I think that could be a thing.
Or the army, something like that.
Yeah, like the foot soldier.
There's like if you don't make it into one of these quadrants, there's like well then you become this. So nobody wants to become that. And there's like the baseline test. Think of it like your ACT or SAT to get into a college. And then there's your specialized test. So she states that like scribes have an essay or a written exam that they have to take. Writers that will learn is crossing the parapet.
Hmm.
And I
I
don't
don't know
think
what
she really
healers
goes
is.
into what you have to be for healers or for infantry.
Which it's kind of
But
interesting that in this world, those are the only four options for you. That's it.
at least in Navarre,
Yeah, that's it. That's all you get.
that's it. And you like have to join a war college. It's not a choice.
No. At least most get to choose which quadrant. Most.
The choice is you can choose where to go, not if you go.
Right. And we learned that Violet doesn't get a choice. Her mom is forcing her into the writer's quadrant, which we don't understand why. So that's quite interesting, especially since we know her father trained her to be a scribe, and her father has passed. So why would her mom not be honoring her father's memory requests, all of that?
Wishes, whatever it is. She is like insistent, like you're going to be a writer. No child of mine will be a scribe. To the point where we, at the very beginning of the book, see Mira, which is Violet's sister, arguing with their mom, her general. Not only is she her mom, but she is her commanding officer. Over this, and Mira very quickly is saying sending Violet into into the writer's quadrant is tantamount to a death sentence.
And we get also a little bit of a hint of her disability in this chapter. Not a
Yeah.
lot, though. Like, I was not sure, honestly, the first time I read this, that she had like a full-on disability. Because Rebecca Yarros says, more so that it's like, or not a disability, I guess, more so a sickness, like a condition. I can't remember what exactly it's called, but she has said it's what it's called. Um, and I believe it's maybe the same condition that Rebecca Yarros suffers from herself.
Yes, I want to say she inspired her disability isn't quite actually named within the series, but it is heavily implied that it is elder something that I can't think of the second part of.
Essentially, it makes her bones very weak, brittle. It makes them easy to break, makes her joints very weak, her tendons, ligaments very weak. And so she's just kind of small and has is kind of fragile. And it's not really people judging her too much when people say that, because it's actually kind of just like the truth. Like, she is fragile. 100%. But what I like about,
Fragile and small.
yes, and small, that's important too, because that holds her back too a little bit. Um, what I like about, so Mira goes in, she's not strong enough mom. She's already broken her arm this year. She sprains some joint every other week. She's not tall enough to mount any dragon big enough to keep her alive in battle. And then a couple, Violet's offended by this first. First of all, she's offended, like, yo, don't say that about me. But then this is how you know that General Sorrengail actually believes in her daughter, even though I don't think Violet hears it. She says, Mira, Violet deals with more pain before lunch than you do in an entire week. If any one of my children is capable of surviving the Rider's Quadrant, it's her.
Which is the most anyone has talked positively about Violet until we meet Rhiannon. And it's just like, Mira, this is your little sister. Yes, you can look out for her. Yes, you can like want what's best for her. But you also need to understand, A, she's in the room as you're talking about her. And B, excuse me. She honestly has like no control over the situation now. So instead of just being like, you're sentencing her to death, why don't we spend more time being like, all right, here's what you need to succeed.
Well, and
Like
that's the thing. Like, I just, Mira is one of the people who constantly says she's going to die. Like, it's not just not believing in her. It's literally, they're so dramatic. I mean, not really dramatic because of the way it is, but they say she is going to die. She says, are you so eager to bury another child? Oof.
also the gall you have to say that to your mother.
Oof.
Because it's been what? Like 5 years since Brennan's died?
I feel like less. Well, no, yeah, maybe 5 years since Brendan's died and 1 year since her father died.
So the only reason I'm going off of 5 years is because within these 2 weeks of reading, they talk about how long since a certain dragon's been bonded, and we know that that dragon's previous rider died trying to save Brennan.
Yes, and I think I was
And I'm
getting
going to
it
say it's been
confused.
5 years.
And I'm pretty sure that the father died only a year ago. He died after Brennan, I believe.
Yeah. Something
So lots of
it's
death.
been it's new. It's all still recent. It's an open wound and you're just like rubbing salt into that to your mother, who's also your like general. And Lilith is over this conversation to where she goes, "You know what? Like get out before I report you missing from your post
Yeah,
because you
she's
did
not
not
even
request
supposed to
time
be
off to
there.
be here."
Not even supposed to be there at all. Yep. And she Mira also has, it's interesting because Mira doesn't want her to be in the Rider's Quadrant, right? Because she knows, I can't say quadrant today, because she knows exactly what it's like. Okay? It's weird though, because Mira is like a talent, an asset in the quadrant. Like, she is one of the top best of the best, right? And
Yeah.
everybody looks at her like, wow, she's amazing, right? But it's interesting because I wonder if Mira actually really wants to be a rider at all, because she really doesn't want Violet to go.
Oh, that's a hot take.
Because I mean, otherwise I feel like she wouldn't be so dead set against her going in. She would be like, well, okay, and she would have switched faster to, okay, let's get you prepared then, you know?
Yeah, and I wonder if it was, well, you know, I went to Rider's Quadrant because I looked up to Brennan and I looked up to Mom, and that's how I ended up here. And she feels that Violet has more of a choice, and she was trained and prepared to become a scribe from the very beginning. Like, she took such an interest. Her dad taught her so many things. that like maybe none of the other siblings had that opportunity or had that chance.
But I also love
Interesting.
and admire how quickly Mira switches from Mom, she cannot do this to all right, let's fucking figure this out. That's like one of my favorite, like you can see when she goes into like, okay, I tried to fight the fight, fight's not gonna work. Let's try to get her the most prepared as possible. Let's go.
And that's what we enter into. She pulls her back into Violet's old childhood bedroom, which is now fully boxed up. Like boxes that you can tell are ready to just get thrown into like a pit to burn. And she's emptying Violet's rucksack.
Yeah. She's like, this is too damn heavy.
You can't carry this, only the essentials. And the things she's pulling out are books. One of the books being a book of fables, a book of folklore about Wyvern and Venom, which was such a throwaway line on my first read that this book
Foreshadowing.
is important, y'all. Foreshadowing.
Pay
Don't
attention.
forget this book exists.
Every time they
And don't
say,
forget,
every
yeah.
time they say
And
Wyvern
the
and
fact that
Venom.
her dad gave her this book. That is something else that's very, very important. And we will see very soon that upon second read, I'm like, hold on. What?
It also says, she says, okay, so they're talking about the book, and she goes, it's venom, not vermin. And she says, Mira says, just don't try to channel your power without being a bonded rider. And red-eyed monsters won't hide under your bed, waiting to snatch you away on their two-legged dragons to join their dark army. That's the folklore. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, I would just, if you guys haven't already, just tab mark that page for later in this book. We will be coming back to that.
I also want to bring us back up the page a little bit. They talk about the parapet. So her first challenge is going to be crossing this parapet. And they say the parapet is roughly 18 inches wide, 200 feet above ground. And it's stone. So it's like over a foot wide, right? 18 inches.
A foot and a half.
Foot and a half. And it's 200 feet above the ground. If you fall, you die.
It's, I want to say, isn't it supposed to like represent being falling off your dragon?
It's like
what would happen if you fell off your dragon?
Yeah, they say like as a rider, you should be able to walk the spine of your dragon and have like good balance, basically. That's I think what it says.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was scary. So that's what entrance exam for them.
And it's the fact that there are like hundreds, if not thousands, of cadets lined up to cross this parapet.
And they're
to
all
become
excited.
a rider.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, let's go. I'm gonna win. I'm good. And then
I will not die today.
yeah, exactly. And then Mira kind of gives her like she gives her the lowdown very, very quickly, and she gives her something extremely important that she made. She gives her a I think it's just called like a vest, like a corset vest thing. And she says, "What is this?" I test the material above my heart, scratching with my fingernails. Something I designed, she explains, tugging my braid painfully tight against my scalp. I had it specially made for you with tiny scales, which is Mira's dragon, sewn in, so be careful with it. Dragon scales. I jerked my head to look back at her. How? Tiny is huge. I happen to know a rider whose powers can make big things very small. And then she winks at her because that's funny. And smaller things much bigger. So she made her a vest that is basically impenetrable because it's made of dragon scales, which is so cool.
Yeah.
It's bringing me back to
Also-
Lord of the Rings with the, what is it? The Mithril shirt. Anyway, keep going.
Tiny is a green dragon. We're just going to throw that information out there for later use.
I need to keep
Keep
track.
that in mind too.
I need to keep track of it. So Mira has green.
Mira has a green dragon, Tiny. And I want to say their mom's dragon's brown.
Yes.
And Brennan had an orange dragon. This is all important. These colors are very important.
Yup. Orange. Oh, and General Melgren, which is like he's not like the king, but he's like the highest muckety muck, right? Basically, like the authority. He has a black dragon.
Yes, Coda. He has Coda, the largest dragon as well.
Coda. Anyway, I just thought that the vest is super, super cool, and it means what's weird about it is, how did she have time to get this made? Was she making it for herself, but then she gave it to Violet?
I think part of Mira always knew in the back of her mind that their mom was going to do something like this. So I want to say she probably made it hoping she wouldn't have to give it to her, but understanding that, anything's possible. Because that's the kind of vibe I get of this world that we're living in, that you don't want to believe this is going to happen, but you would be remiss to not plan for the worst.
Right. And while she's braiding Violet's hair, we also get like a sense of another part of what we think, wink, wink, I'm not sure, is part of her disease, is that her hair turns gray at the ends no matter what length it's at. So silver, gray.
Yes.
And so the color gets leached out of her hair at the ends.
Violet has chosen to keep her hair long in something that, like, we will constantly hear people tell her. It's like, you should have cut this, you should have cut this, you should have cut this. And she's like, even if I cut it, it would still lose its color at the ends. I read a theory recently about her hair and, like, who she is that I might get into in the redacted section. Not that I think it spoils anything, but just to kind of keep it away from this in case it does.
There's a bunch of theories.
Yeah.
And they're all very interesting. And then, so Mira kind of goes into basically, like, you've read the Codex, so she obviously knows the Codex super well. So then Mira kind of, like, summarizes a little bit of it for us, like, basically the dangers. So she's saying the other riders can kill you at any time, or they cannot kill, we know this, while you're sleeping. And so there's a couple exceptions to who can kill who. Nobody who's part of your squad can kill you either. That would be a violation of the Codex. And not like Fourth Wing isn't a squad. It's like your tail, is it like the tail section or whatever it is your squad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fourth Wing, tail section, squad 2, whatever like that breakdown is.
So that just
it's
the
like
tiniest
there's
section.
like 9 people. Yeah, there's like 9 people directly within your squad that cannot kill you, but like you will be put up in challenges against other people in your wing, and they can technically kill you in those challenges, and it's fair game.
They can kill you at any point.
You're only
sleeping.
safe. You're only safe when you're asleep.
Yep.
And even then, are you safe?
Yes. Yeah. And then, yeah, except when sleeping, that is an I can't say. Basically, you get
executionable.
Yeah, offense to attack any cadet while sleeping. And then this is kind of, you're getting your sense of, like, Violet is like a walking, talking book. Like, she is like, she just knows, like, all the facts. She knows everything.
And the last piece of advice Mira leaves her with is find Dain Atos.
Fucking Dain.
Okay, so again, I originally read this book audio. I listened to it. I did not know how to spell any of these characters' names. The second I picked up Iron Flame and I opened the book and I saw the way Dane's name was spelled, I had a hissy fit.
Why?
A hissy fit. It is one letter off from how you spell my name.
Ah, ha, 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 ha. How else would you
I had
spell
a
Dane?
hissy fit. I had spelt it Dane in my head, like a
Gotcha.
Great Dane.
Which would be a great way to describe Dane. He's a Great Dane. Not so Great Dane.
Not so great. Um, I was livid. That's the most self-centered I'll ever get in life, is not wanting to share my name with this character.
I like 2 sentences above Fine Dane. I think it's really interesting that they're Violet is talking, and she says, "Hell, the writers have their own citadel. Pretentious, egotistical fucks." It gives you a hint of she doesn't like writers.
She doesn't see herself as one yet.
It's like
It's this unobtainable goal.
she had a family of writers, right? So it's kind of like when you, let's say, have like a family of one thing and you're not that thing, you're like, I hate writers. All my family are writers. They're just egotistical assholes. I hate them. And so that's literally what the vibes that I'm getting from her. She loves her family, but like, man, writers suck. So I think that's funny.
But like, they kind of do.
Uh-huh. She also tells her who she can and cannot sleep with.
Ugh.
Because we learned that if you're a writer, you might as well get your jollies in because you're going to die anyway. So might as well.
You could die any day, but also don't get your jollies in with anybody above you.
Right.
Because you don't want people thinking you slept your way to the top.
I like how she doesn't
Or
cover...
slept your way to safety.
She doesn't cover professors.
Nope, it's just like second year and third years. You should probably stay away from them. And does she tell her, oh, I don't remember fully. Does she tell her to stay away from the marked?
She tells her to stay
The
away
marked
from
ones?
Zane
Or
Ryerson.
just Zayden?
Or Zayden Ryerson. What the heck? Zayden Ryerson, yeah. And she says, stay away. Stay the hell away from Zayden Ryerson. And then she immediately knows the name. She's like, oh
Yes.
no, Zayden Ryerson?
Ryerson, because, and I want to say it's stated right here at the beginning, or if not this chapter, the next. Fen Ryerson, which is his dad, was responsible for Brennan's death.
Yes.
And then in turn, Lilith killed Fen.
Yes.
So.
She says, Mom says General Melgren's dragon did it all to them. And this is talking about they all have a relic. And I'm learning that tattoo means relic. They all have like a magical tattoo that they were all the children of the rebellion leaders were all marked with a tattoo. Mom says General Malgren's dragon did it to all of them when he executed their parents, but she wasn't exactly open to further discussion on the topic. Nothing like punishing the kids to deter more parents from committing treason. They also, the marked ones, have to go into the Dragon Riders quadrant. Have to.
And we do learn later on that, like, not only were these the kids who were already alive living at this moment were marked with it, but I want to say they state that a child was even born with one.
Well, it is a magical
Because
mark.
it's a magical mark, and I want to say the youngest of the marked is only 6 years old.
I also, I want to say something. I don't think I'll give anything away. Why the Riders Quadrant and not the infantry? Is this Coda's doing? And this is not a question you're going to answer. I'm just putting that out into the world. Why? You know, yes, they say that the riders, like, a lot of them die, right? So that's, you know, whatever. But why risk having a marked one bond with a dragon? Why not put them in the infantry? I think it's maybe Coda's
Food
thing.
for thought.
It's interesting, right?
This might be a topic for later because I think I do know why.
All right. I'm gonna write it
Or
down.
I have a suspicion as to why. It's been a while. I read these books back in January. We're rereading them again. I think I have it's something in the back of my mind is telling me why, but I don't think it's something I can state without either spoiling the end of this book or part of Iron Flame.
Yeah. So Mira says that Xaden Ryerson is going to kill her right when he finds out who she is because her mother I think she like physically executed them all. Correct? And General Melgren like ordered it. It seems like.
Yeah, and if not her physically executing them, I will say she probably just had the biggest hand of like Fen because Fen was the one who killed Brennan and Lilith is one for revenge. So she probably made it her job.
And Fen Ryerson is Xaden's father.
Yes.
His father, the great betrayer, he led the rebellion. What is Xaden doing here? All the children of the leaders were conscripted as punishment for their parents' crimes. Mom told me they never expected Ryerson to make it past the parapet. Then they figured a cadet would kill him, but once his dragon chose him, well, there's not much that can be done then. He's risen to the rank of wing leader, which is the highest, cadet rank that you can have. And then Violence is like, this is bullshit. She doesn't think that any of them should, even be around. Like, she hates marked ones at this moment.
Is it that she hates the marked ones, or is it that she's feeling like that's bullshit in the sense of, like, why are they even forced to be here?
She says, I feel like there's more, like, internal monologue where she talks about how they're the rebellion and that's wrong and they should be like punished in maybe a different way or something like that. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I get the feeling that she doesn't like the marked ones.
Well, yeah, and this is also her walking in as a soaring gale. Like, they're gonna know immediately who I am as they read off the roll call. My name puts a target on me. They are all against me. Like, oh shit.
Well, and every time she says her name going up to this parapet, people are like, General Sorengale Star?
Sorengale.
I didn't know there was another Sorengale.
There's more of you?
Yep. And then someone says, by the gods, the rider next to Captain Fitzgibbon says, you're Mira Sorengale? His jaw drops and I can smell his hero worship from here. That's how we know Mira is like, she's tough shit.
Yeah, and then they do talk about, like, one of the honors that riders get once graduating, because Mira's received the Order of the Talon for taking out the battery behind enemy lines. So, like, there is, like, Violet's coming from a family of successful, like, well-endowed riders. And everyone's now looking at her, and she is small, she is weak, she is fragile.
Yep. And we know that Brennan was a mender. That gets told to us. And then what do we know what Mira does right now?
Not at the beginning. I can't even recall what her power is off the top of my head. We also do know that Lilith Sorengale, their mother, controls storms. She controls the weather. Cough, cough, hint, hint. Stay tuned for like 3 minutes from now.
Yeah. We also get to meet two cadets that are going to cross the parapet with her. One is Rhiannon and one is Dylan. This was a very, I described this to Dana. This was a very Game of Thrones Ned Stark choice, where we get attached to a character. We build a little bit of background story, very sweet background story, just for him to fall off the parapet and die.
He was gonna marry the love of his life after 3 years.
The only reason he was, but not the only reason, but one of the biggest reasons he was going to be a writer is so that they get access to marriage faster than anyone else. And he wants to marry this girl. And she said it would be bad luck if they would be engaged before he went to the parapet.
So he took the ring with him as a good luck charm. And then he falls off the parapet.
Yes, he does. And it's, yeah. He says, plus I heard that writers are allowed to marry sooner than the other quadrants. She said it would be bad luck to propose before I left, so we're waiting until graduation. He kisses the ring and tucks the chain back under his collar. The next 3 years are going to be long ones, but they'll be worth it.
You want to know what other character we meet in this not too long after?
Jack fucking Barlow.
Jack fucking Barlow.
God, this dude, I don't hate him in a way of like, oh man, I just hate this person. It's more of a like, he is the most annoying person I have ever like. And if you listen to the audiobooks, the voice that the narrator uses for him is so annoying. I don't know if that's the way that like, that's why that's in my head, but I hate it.
So Jack Barlow to me is your like stereotypical frat guy Chad. That's like how he's come across in my head. But also stereotypical frat guy Chad as a villain. Like, he is also your stereotypical villain. Like, he wants the downfall of the main character. And you'll see that she's going to be constantly battling against him for the most part.
Yes. Constantly.
The things you find out in Iron Flame.
I just hate him so much. She also switches a boot with Rhiannon because Rhiannon has smooth boots like she had before Mira made her change to rider's boots. So she switches one boot, even though they're kind of different size shoes, but she's like, we're going to switch boots so that you have any chance of making it. Which is a huge risk for Violet, but it kind of gives you a show of like, she doesn't even know this person. She literally just met her, and she wants her to live. Mm-hmm.
That's her character. That, like, from the very beginning is showing off, like, this is how Violet is. She's not, despite a nickname she'll get later on, she's not a violent person.
Well, funny enough, before we actually meet Jack, we get a very nice description of he's tall, with wind-blown black hair and dark brows. The line of his jaw is strong and covered by warm, tawny skin and dark stubble. And when he folds his arms across his tattoo, the muscles in his chest and arms ripple, moving in a way that makes me swallow. And his eyes are the shade of gold-flecked onyx. This contrast is startling, jaw-dropping even. Everything about him is. His features are so harsh that they looked carved, and yet they're astonishingly perfect, like an artist worked a lifetime on sculpting him. And at least a year of that was spent on his mouth. This is how you know that Xaden Ryerson is the main love interest of this book. When you're reading fantasy, if somebody goes into that kind of detail about a male character, doesn't matter who he is in this moment, he's the guy.
When the following words are the most exquisite man I've ever seen, I don't care how Violet feels about anybody else.
He's the guy.
He's the guy.
That's how I think I maybe wrote off Dane so quickly, because I was like, oh, fuck Dane. This guy's the guy.
I mean, I clearly wrote him off as, like, her full love interest. I just didn't write off his character yet. As in, fuck Dane.
Flaming hot, scorching hot, gets you into trouble and you like it level of hot. Xaden, right?
Oh, yeah. It keeps going. And then she figures out who he is. And then she goes, oh shit, nope, not him.
Oh,
Anybody but him.
I hate him. Oops. Oops.
Yikes, his father's responsible for my brother's death.
Oh, actually, we get it. Your mother captured my father and oversaw his execution. That's what it says.
Your father killed my older brother. Seems like we're even.
Mm-hmm.
Hardly.
Yeah.
And he's the first one to comment on her leathers. She is dressed in rider black, unlike everybody else crossing this parapet.
Mm-hmm. She is in complete leathers. And, you know, they always talk about, it's interesting because you were talking about, before we started, the hero's journey. A lot of time in fantasy, like I'm thinking of like, let's say, ACOTAR, once they get into fighting leathers, that's like the turning point for the hero's journey. Like they start turning from one place to another. And so the fact that she got into fighting leathers so quickly is like, holy crap, this is like really escalating very fast.
Well, not even that. She's getting ready to cross the parapet. And when you look at the hero's journey, the first 3 steps are, hold on, let me pull up my little cheat sheets really quick. You're looking at 3 really quick steps that are happening. Her first 2 steps, which is her call to action, which in this case, her call to action is her mom forcing her into the writer's quadrant, and then the meeting of a mentor. Her mentor right now is Mira, throwing stuff out of a rucksack, telling her how to survive. And now she is crossing that threshold into Beskayeth, into the writer's quadrant. This is the unknown for her. She is now full force somewhere where she did not expect to be, somewhere where she's not safe.
And Mira is the only one that she takes every word of advice as like Bible. Like everyone else tries to give her advice. Dane does, Rhiannon does, Imogen does, Xaden does, like all of them do, and she doesn't trust every word. She maybe takes bits and pieces, but she doesn't quite like follow it like she would follow Mira and then at some point the book of Brennan. So yeah, we'll get there. But
I want my own personal copy of the Book of Brennan, please.
me too.
Rebecca Yarros, can you make that happen? Because you're totally listening to this podcast.
And right before we get to chapter 2, so this is all chapter 1. Right before we get to chapter 2, it says, a scream rends in the air, and Rhiannon and I both jerk our attention to the parapet just in time to see Dylan slip. He catches himself hooking his arms over the stone bridge as his feet kick beneath him, scrambling for purchase that isn't there. Pull yourself up, Dylan, Rhiannon shouts. Oh gods, my hand flies over to cover my mouth, but he loses his grip on the water-slick stone and falls, disappearing from view. The wind and rain, hint hint, steal any sound of his body might make in the valley below. They steal the sound of my muffled cry too. Xaden never takes his eyes from me, watching silently with a look that I can't interpret, and I bring my horrified gaze back to his. Why would I waste my time and energy killing you on the parapet, or killing you when the parapet will do it for me? A wicked smile curves his lip. Your turn. And that's what she gets to see.
And that was Xaden talking.
Yes, and so that's what she gets to see right before she's about to go over the parapet herself.
It is storming.
Yeah.
It is storming.
Mm-hmm.
So not only is it hard to cross this parapet on a normal day, there is wind, there is rain, there is thunder, there is lightning.
So is this General Sorrengail not helping her daughter? Or is it her sabotaging her daughter? This is the big question that everyone asks all the time.
Is Lilith Sorrengail Dumbledore? We are making these connections to Harry Potter, and I texted Bonnie this, and Bonnie still thinks I'm crazy.
A little bit, but
I don't
get
think
it in
you think
this
I'm
part.
crazy. Mm-hmm. But it's in the sense of thinking of Harry Potter and all, and like there was so much that Dumbledore could have done to like help Harry out and been like, hey, actually, like, this is how things are. But he never like ever made Harry's life easy. He made him work for it, and he wanted those challenges out there to prove, in part probably for Harry to prove to himself that like he is this great wizard, but to prove to everyone else that he is this great wizard and he's not receiving these handouts. Is Lilith doing the same thing? Did she conjure up this storm to be like, actually, you're stronger than you think, and this is how I'm going to prove it to you?
Or did she simply just not help her by taking away the storm? Because she could have. She could have been like, let's do clear skies, right? If there was a storm, she could have been like, oh shit, there's a storm. Let's do clear skies for Violet. That would have been her breaking the codex and giving her assistance, which she was very clear that she was not going to do. But she would have also had the power to bring on the storm. So I don't know.
So was the storm already going to happen? Was it something she summoned? Like, but also, hint, hint, cough, cough, thunder, lightning.
Yes, it does say somewhere that there was a bolt of lightning or a thunderclap when like right after Violet gave her name. Is that the beginning, right before the parapet, or the end? I can't remember.
I want to say it's probably right before when she first gives her name.
Yeah. Foreshadowing.
But it's foreshadowing. And then we start off chapter 2. I'm going to skip the little intro quote, but I will not die today.
She says it,
and that becomes her mantra.
So many times. So many times.
So many times. All the times.
Oh, here it is. Name, Violet Sorrengail. I answer as thunder cracks above me. The sound oddly comforting. I've always loved the nights where storms beat against the fortress window, both illuminating and throwing shadows over the books I curled up with, though this downpour might just cost me my life. So much
shadows,
foreshadowing. You say. So much foreshadowing.
Yeah. All the foreshadowings with shadows.
Even for later in this, like next week's chapters. Like, maybe even this week's chapters, but I think it's maybe next week's chapters. Foreshadowing.
It's great. It's great.
Yes.
But then again, we get that whole Sorrengail as in General Sorrengail, and it's time for her to cross the parapet. And the way she does this, how does she get herself across? By reciting facts.
Genius Rebecca Yarros, like, genius level writing right there, where she gets to drop world building in these high stress moments. And it's fascinating. It's
one of those things that, like, you write off on the first read because you're like, okay, she's just saying whatever to get herself through it. You're going back and you're like, oh, wait, oh,
this is fascinating.
I get it.
Uh-huh. And it's crazy.
That's how that works.
When you get to the end of this book, you realize, oh my God, Violet had all of this in her head already. She already knew, like, everything. And she just didn't put anything together. Because she's the one who's giving us all the world building, everything, all the information.
And that's also going to end up being one of the most frustrating parts of her character, is that she knows so much, but it's that danger of knowing so much and then not being able to see the full picture.
Scribes, their job is to notate, not to make judgments on the notations. That's it. So her job is to physically just write things down and keep track. It's not to, like, make any type of, like, jumps or draws from this information. It simply should just know the information. And that's a definite character flaw.
She does start to learn how to make those connections and those judgments as she gets into one of her classes at Biscayeth, Battle Brief.
Yeah. And that's when she actually sees how, like, helpful her brain is.
Yeah. But we cross the parapet, or we try to cross, we fall. Jack fucking Barlow tries to throw her off. But we will not die today.
And Jack does kill someone. Jack throws a scrawny candidate from the parapet like a sack of grain. And she goes, holy shit.
From behind him, he like turns around to throw this person off.
I just see him as like this like little roid rage monster. Like, you know the baby in The Incredibles when he turns to like the flaming baby and he's all like, rah, like the monster baby. I just see him literally like running down the parapet like, rah, and then he grabs him and jumps him off, and then he's like running to get Violet, because he runs down the parapet to get Violet. And she's like, holy shit, he is running towards me, like gaining feet.
To the point where, like, she crosses the parapet. She is now a cadet. He is not, and he's trying to kill her. And she goes, actually, if you kill me, you get executed. Like, I am now a cadet. You are not. You cannot hurt me here yet. And
she says, Jack either thinks I'm the weak link, or he's an unstable asshole who just enjoys killing. Both.
It's both.
It's both. It's both. He sees it as like his personal mission, his personal vendetta to make sure that there aren't weak links. And it's weird.
Yes.
It's very weird.
He is Gaston. It's Gaston energy. But it's also like, he's such an interesting character. And taking into like everything that we learn about him, and maybe it's because she embarrasses him the way she does after she crosses the parapet, but she is also his personal target. Like, he does not want anything good to come to her, and he sees it as like a slap on the wrist, a fucking slap in the face whenever something good happens to her, and not him.
He's obsessed. Boy's obsessed. Can I draw your attention to, I haven't been paying attention to this before this, but I don't think, well, it's happened a little bit, I guess. Maybe I'm wrong. I think it's only happened since chapter 2, and since, hint, hint, she met Xaden Ryerson. There's italicized text that are thoughts. That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
And it's all like encouraging things, kind of. The snarky encouragement. Which I take as her inner monologue as I read it.
Kind of like her intentions. They might be her intentions. Maybe y'all should stick around to the classified section for my thoughts on these moments.
But also do not, if you haven't read it. If you haven't read Iron Flame.
Yes, no, this is a very big thing. Like, please do not listen to the classified section of this podcast if you have not read Iron Flame.
There are a good 5,
Fully.
like, huge twists that you will be like, I'm sorry, what? And it'll ruin the entire thing. Don't do it.
Don't do it to yourselves.
Yeah, don't do it. Okay, so she makes it across, which is great. We're happy. And she
makes it across. She's a cadet. And then we meet Dane fucking Atos.
And right before that, she tries to cut off Jack's balls. But there's that too.
I'm still upset she did it.
I mean, don't want him to be procreating anywhere.
We really don't.
Don't need his genes in the world.
I don't need more Jack Barlows.
Yes, and then we meet Dane fucking Atos. And Dane is like, what the hell are you doing here? Like, he is upset.
Like, one point in his, like, behalf, he immediately, like, understands that she's in pain and's like, let me take you somewhere where people won't see you as a wink link so you can wrap your knee and, like, help yourself. But that's the only point I'm giving him.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. He immediately touches her. So, we are keeping an eye on Dane fucking Atos touching Violet in any sort of way because we do learn just in a couple pages about the fact that he has his signet. Signet is basically a magical power that your dragon gifts to you that has to do with you personally and your strengths, but also the dragon's mixture of strengths. And so Dane's is classified because why, Dana?
He's an insignet, which means, in a sense, he is a mind reader. However, his mind reading, he has to, quote unquote, touch the person, which he then later will clarify like 3 lines down. Well, I have to touch their temples. I don't buy that.
I think
At
when
all.
it first manifested, yes, probably. But I think
But I think now as a second year, not at all. But he can only see a person's memories. We also know, though, that insignets get killed. Like, it is illegal. It is against, like, the codex or a law, basically, to have this power. Because then, you're a walking, like, liability. And we will, in next week's chapters, see how big of a walking liability they can be.
well, and okay, we've talked about this in books prior. Any time where the world seems very harsh and very like lots of people are dying, this is the only way, this is just how we do it, you have to accept it this way. It usually means that the government structure is corrupt, yes? So that's typically just how it goes, right? Now, an intrinsic or whatever, someone who can read memories, right, is a huge liability for anyone to have around in this world right now. And we don't necessarily.
They know too much.
Yes, and so they're immediately executed.
However, why was Day not executed? You might be wondering. Well, good old Colonel Atos, his father, is right on up there in commands. He is Lilith's second hand,
Yeah.
I want to say. So he's powerful. And don't for a second doubt that nepotism doesn't exist in this land. Because it does. Nepotism is real and alive.
And they argued,
And we see it in Dane and his father.
Yes, and they argued the fact that because 2 things. He has to touch people, so anyone who doesn't want theirs read can run away from Dane. Second, he can only read recent memories, which who knows if that will strengthen or not. I think that'll strengthen into more.
It also doesn't define what recent means.
Nope. And it's also very
Anyways.
possible that he didn't have to
Fuck
actually
Dane.
touch. Yeah, he doesn't actually have to touch temples, and his father just told him to tell everyone that that's what it is, right? So that they could keep him not dead. He has I think it's a triangle, triangle thing on his thing that says that he's his signet is classified. But anyway, all that to say,
Yeah, and
he touches her here.
He touches her here. He touches her here, and he's also, like, very much like, you're wearing daggers. Like, what the hell is going on? You're supposed to be in the scribe quadrant. Like, get your knee wrapped. I'm sneaking you out. And she goes, no, I'm a cadet. Like, I just made it across. I'm not going anywhere.
Exactly. And the interesting part with this, too, is he starts by, he touches her back and her elbow. And it's very clear every time he touches her, like, it is very spelled out where. Then he rubs her lower back. Then he takes my chin between his thumb and forefinger. So here, right? So he touches her quite a bit in a lot of different spots. And so either way, no matter what, here, he's reading her most recent memories, which I think is maybe trying to figure out why it is that she got here and like what led up to her being here.
Yeah. Why'd you cross the parapet? What went on? So like, more than not, he already knows that like her and her mom had this fight. Her mom is basically forcing her to be here, and her mom literally told her like, I will drag you by the hair back to the fucking Riders Quadrant. I don't give two shits. He also had sent Rhiannon before they went to his room. He sent Rhiannon to tell the redhead or whoever that was taking names to put both of them in second squad, flame section, second wing, so that they would be under him as squad leader. Second wing. Isn't what's her face in the wing leader for second wing?
Amber. Amber is
Yeah.
also the redhead, I believe.
Is she?
I think so.
She's also his little buddy.
His little bed buddy.
His little bed buddy.
He also says at the beginning, or he also says this is the first time I think he says, "You are going to die if we don't find a way out of here." Again, the second person who said, "You're gonna die today."
Yeah, and like you're supposed to be my best friend. Can you please like not tell me I'm gonna die? Can you be like, oh my god, I'm so proud of you for crossing the parapet? Very demure.
This is when we make a team Violet list and team not Violet. And right now I think the only three people that are on her team are her mother. Probably. We're not absolutely sure about that, but her mother, Rhiannon, and one more person. Oh, Mira. Even though Mira was telling her she was going to die, but I really do think Mira's on her side.
It's Mira. Is Mira fully Team Violet now? Yeah. Honestly, we're putting Dylan up there too because he was Team Violet until he died.
Sure. I'm gonna spell Rhiannon's name wrong.
It's fine. We're not perfect.
But that's it. The people who I do not consider to be on her team is fucking Dane, Zayden, and of course Jack Barlow.
Jack fucking Barlow. Oh. So we go through a whole bunch of just like Dane trying to force her to the scribe quadrant, which gross. And then formation. Do we get our first formation in this chapter?
It kind of takes a little while. It's like they're waiting for everyone to cross the parapet, and then as soon as everyone is crossed, then they gather and do like a
301. 301 of you have survived the parapet to become cadets today, Commander Panchek states with a politician smile, gesturing to us. The guy has always talked with his hands. Good job. 67 did not.
So
67 people died trying to get here.
So we started with, what is that, 368?
Yeah. First years.
That's crazy.
Wow.
A lot of dead kids.
Wow. Yeah. Within like a couple of hours. And it's also worth noting that like shortly after Violet crossed the parapet, the storm ended. Storm went bye-byes.
I have a couple Dane quotes here, like just to show how much Dane doesn't really believe in her, that are just all over this page. So, this place will kill you, Violet. You can't stay here. Everyone will understand. You didn't volunteer. Not really. Before you'll break the first time they put you in the sparring ring, and that's before the dragon sense that you're. She goes, I'm what? Go ahead and say it. What they sense, I'm less than the others. And then he says that other people are perfectly healthy. She goes, I don't want to be called unhealthy. Um, and then he says, let me save you. His entire posture droops, and the plea in his eyes shreds some of my indignation. Please let me save you.
Yeah. So Dane's an ass. We're in formation, and now the cadets are getting split into their squads.
Mm-hmm.
And they're calling out names. Everyone's being moved to their squads. You know, you have Violet and Rhiannon and Roderick. Yes. They're all going to be squad mates. They're all with Dane in second wing until Zayden goes, hold up, hold up there now. And all of a sudden, Dane Atos, you and your squad will switch with Aura Benhaven's Naira orders. Wait, what?
We are moving
Dane
to
nods,
fourth wing.
follow me. Zayden's wing.
Mm-hmm. Which she takes that as.
So we're now in fourth wing.
She takes that as he's moving her so he has more access to kill her. Which is an interesting take from her perspective, to be honest, because she wanted Dane to take her to be protected. So I think that's an interesting take on her perspective.
But after, it was like, I want to be with Dane. Dane's going to keep me safe. But now I'm in the direct line of fire of Zayden because I'm in his wing. So he can set, like, other squad members to kill me or, I guess, whatever. That aren't, like, within my direct squad. But you know what else we get to meet? We get to meet some pretty awesome dragons.
Yes. Yes. It also says, by the way, that this the War College is essentially protecting the valley that is the Vale. So it's really super close to where the dragons live that no one is allowed to go to, and it's basically like the last defense to the hatching grounds, the Vale, that area.
Hatchlings, you might say.
I might say. But yes, then we meet dragons.
We meet dragons, one of which is this very large navy dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm trying to skim the page to find, like, the direct description of her. But, so we meet dragons.
And even though Violet's been in
they
this
didn't need
place,
us.
even though Violet's been in this place the entire time, she's never seen a dragon this close before, which is really interesting because why would she have never seen her mother's dragon this close before, right? Like, that's like a super interesting like tidbit that she personally has never seen dragons this close. Just maybe flying overhead.
Yes, and so the dragons that we see, there are 3 dragons in various shades of red, 2 shades of green, like Tiny, Mira's dragon, 1 brown, like Mom's, 1 orange, and the enormous navy one ahead of me. They're all massive, overshadowing the structure of the citadel as they narrow their golden eyes at us in absolute judgment. Mm-hmm. Dragons are judgy. Like, their entire characters, traits that we know them, like, they are judging them
They
to
are
see if they're
essentially
worthy.
the Sorting Hat. If the Sorting Hat could just burn you alive, if it was not worthy.
Yeah, and they actually do end up burning somebody alive. And we're actually now at 68 dead.
Yes. I have an important quote. The Navy Dragon seems to tilt its head at me, as if its narrowed golden eyes can see straight through me, to the fear fisting my stomach and the doubt curled insidiously around my heart. I bet it can even see the wrap binding my knee. It knows that I'm at a disadvantage, that I'm too small to climb its foreleg and mount, too frail to ride. Dragons always know.
But I will not run. I will not die today.
Yes. But then someone runs.
Well, several people run, and now there's 70 cadets dead total. So we're now to what?
Two less, so 291, 299.
Something like that. We went 68, 70, yep, 299. And we get something I have highlighted was a third of you again. Oh, anyone else feel like changing their minds? Aiden shouts, scanning the remaining rows of cadets with the same shrewd gaze as the Navy dragon behind him. No? Excellent. Roughly half of you will be dead by this time next summer. The formation is silent except for a few untimely sobs from my left. A third of you again the year after that. And the same year last year. No one cares who your mommy and daddy is here. Even King Tori's second son died during his threshing. So tell me again, do you feel invincible now that you've made it into the Riders Quadrant? Untouchable? Elite? No one cheers. Because you're not untouchable or special to them. Zayden points towards the Navy dragon and leans forward slightly, like he's lecturing, letting us in on a secret as we lock eyes. To them, you're just the prey.
And that's the first hint that we get that the Navy dragon is Zayden's dragon.
Is his.
Baddest bitch of them all.
A Navy dagger tail. And then we see our first death roll. So like every morning, talk about a dystopian world where every morning you line up and you have to listen to the names of like all of your peer members who died.
And it's like published in some
and you
type
stand
of,
there
like,
listening name by name.
Yeah, and it's published in some type of like newspaper or something that they distribute across Navarre. That's how people find out that their children died. Ooh.
It's crazy because they're not within the first year. You're not allowed to write to anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so now we're just kind of like settling in. It's, I don't know, at this point it's a little like we're not learning quite as much. We're just kind of settling in to where we're at. We learned that the first years get to go to barracks.
Mm-hmm.
So they all sleep in one big room together, like, with bunks and whatnot. And Rhiannon and her friendship is kind of cemented. We meet Riddick.
We meet Sawyer, who is a second year first year because he didn't bond last year, but he survived. Mm-hmm. And it's also important to note that the only cadets who get private rooms as first years are the cadets who become riders by bonding a dragon.
Yep. And it's interesting because if you don't get bonded, it's like you're this like almost like untouchable like group of people because everyone sees the dragons as like the authority for everything, right? So if you were not found worthy to bond a dragon, something must be wrong with you. We don't know what it is, but like something's wrong with you. Which they don't see that Sawyer as like this, but later on they see a lot of people as like they're like this like little group of people that everyone's like something must be wrong with them.
Yeah, and it's very much like the unbonded. We will also learn that they believe that, a dragon would be willing to bond to them if they kill after threshing. We'll get into that next week, but it's a very interesting power dynamic that gets set up for sure.
Yeah.
But we're off to like our first classes now.
Oh, actually, hold on. We get to Dane kind of steals her away for a minute, and this is when we figure out his powers. So he says, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. He steps forward, cups her face, thumb stroking over my cheekbone in a soothing motion. Then he says, as for powers, Kath channels a pretty significant amount of magic compared to, Kath is his dragon, compared to other dragons, but I'm nowhere near adept at it yet. I can read a person's recent memories, Dane admits quietly. Not like an intrinsic reads minds or anything. I have to put my hands on the person, so I'm not a security risk. But my signet is not common knowledge. I think they'll use me in intelligence. He points to the compass beneath his fourth wing.
What color is
I don't know.
Calf?
I don't know. That's what I was wondering myself. Um, yeah, so that means that his like little thing says that he's like classified. I just put my hand on
Yeah.
someone's temple. So then a little bit down down the page, he says, I have to put my hands on someone's temples. I think that part's a lie.
I don't fully believe that. Um, I'm also searching up what color his dragon is because I really want to know.
That's fine. So when they get to the, I think they have to go to the, like, formation. Zayden kind of makes fun of Dane for saying, he's like, I expected you to be a little bit better at hiding the fact that, like, you're into Violet. Like, that doesn't make her very safe, basically, I think is what he's saying to him. He's like, you're kind of putting an additional target on her back. Which is interesting that Zayden calls this out. He's very critical of Dane, like, quite often throughout the series, which I actually really enjoy, his calling out of Dane's fuckery. He's kind of like the voice of reason.
Calf is a red dragon.
Okay. We don't know much about reds other than they're, like, kind of ruthless.
Yeah. Reds like to set people on fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And then we kind of get to chapter 5, which is Battle Brief.
Battle Brief. Okay, my favorite class by far to attend through this book is Battle Brief. Because not only do we get a bunch of world building, but this is also where we see Violet go from thinking, I'm just a scribe, to thinking, wait, I can actually be both. And how important kind of like that her scribe brain is to her now being a better writer, I guess I should say. If that makes sense. Because we see they start asking questions about like this attack that just happened. And Violet does not want to bring attention to herself at all. But she's also like, why the hell are griffins attacking in this high of an altitude? And she's feeding these questions to Rhiannon to ask. And the professor immediately clocks her and goes, ask your own questions next time.
They already know her. They know that she's the
They
one.
do.
Like,
Well, and one of them, Professor Markham, was who she was training under to be a scribe.
the beginning of this chapter, chapter 5, the quote. Did you read that carefully? Because I just did, and my mind is spinning.
Oh, wow. I am just
Yeah.
rereading this now.
Knowing I am in direct. So this is from General Lilith Sorengale, an official brief for King Tori. So she sent this to the king. Knowing I am in direct disagreement with General Melgren's orders, I am officially objecting to the plan set forth in today's briefing. It is not this general's opinion that the children of the rebellion's leaders should be forced to witness their parents' executions. No child should watch their parent put to death. Wow.
Please stay tuned for the classified section.
That is
because I might start crying.
That is a sneaky little thing in there, and I don't think I would have noticed that. And I wouldn't have even, I think I read it, but I didn't realize who wrote it until just now. Anyway, but yeah, so they're in Battle Brief, and they're talking about some,
We learn more about like the griffins and how griffins work, that they can't fly and they're not as powerful in higher altitudes. We're learning about wards failing or falling, which is like a really big deal because the wards are what keeps Navarre and Navarian cities safe, and like
From griffins.
from griffins, from outside magic, non-dragon magic.
And then the wards failing is like a big like shock to everybody. Like it's weird because it's like not a secret because all the cadets know now. And it seems like it's pretty public knowledge in the college, but like their parents would have no idea that this is happening, or anyone outside of the war college would have no idea.
Yeah.
And it's concerning.
So this is definitely like classified information for the public. But it's also like, hey, you guys need to know this because what questions would you be asking and what would you be doing? And one of the very first, well, when not Lilith, oh my God, their names are getting jumbled in my head now. When Violet finally like asks her own questions, it turns into a like, well, they were already on their way there. Like, why were they already flying there? For the squad that was heading off to go defend, had they not been alerted or whatever, they would have been there too late. So everything felt a little fishy.
And I also think that the teachers, they think that she's doing a good job, but they're also kind of marking her as like, oh shit,
She knows too
she
much.
knows too much.
And not even that she knows too much, but she's clearly going to ask the questions that they have to watch out for. And I don't fully buy the answer that they gave her.
I can't remember why they said they were already on the way. Because they could tell the wards were failing or something in that spot. I can't remember.
Yeah, so Professor Deriva, or however you pronounce her name, instead of answering Violet's question, kind of throws it back to her. Why would they already be on their way? She prods. Because they somehow knew the wards were breaking. I lift my chin, simultaneously hoping that I'm right and praying to Dune, the goddess of war, that I'm wrong. And then that's when the professor's like, yeah, you're right. One of the dragons in the wings sensed the faltering wards and the wing flew. I don't fully believe that. I think that's the answer they're giving because that's the answer Violet provided them with, and that's all they want to give information for. I don't think they would be outright and forthcoming of like, well, this is actually why they were on their way there.
It's interesting. This class is very interesting because
Shortly after that,
go ahead.
Shortly after that, she throws it to the older kids. She throws it to the second and third years. First years are now no longer asking those questions. And they want to engage that higher critical thinking of you need to be a strategist in order to succeed as a writer. But they obviously aren't going to come clean about everything going on because they don't know who they can fully trust yet.
I see this class as brainwashing in a way because they're teaching them how to think about scenarios. They're telling them what to think about scenarios instead of like, yes, they gave Violet kind of like some leash there, but then they're giving her the conclusion that they want her to have because Violet doesn't know anything. Yeah. So this, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of like brainwashing, to be honest, but we'll see. Then we get to the mat.
I don't fully disagree.
Yeah.
We do get to the mat. I don't fully disagree, but then the mats. Oh, the mats.
Yes. We're fighting now.
Oh.
We learned that Rhiannon is a badass.
Yeah. We learned that Rhiannon's a badass, and Dane needs to shut the fuck up.
Yes. give me that, Dane.
I don't think I really get mad at Dane until they head to the healer's quadrant. But, so Violet is put, this is all just like assessment week. They're trying to assess everyone's skills ahead of challenges and whatnot, right? So we see Jack fucking Barlow snap a guy's neck and kill him. Another one bites the dust.
Yeah, the
And
sickening
then we
crack of
have-
bones breaking sounds across the gym, and the first year goes limp in Jack's hold. And they're not supposed to do that.
And then we have, they're not, no, because this is just assessments. We're not killing anyone yet.
They're not in trouble, but they're like not
Gosh.
supposed to be. The professor's like, for real? For fucking real? This is annoying.
Yep. And then they place Violet up against Imogen, who is another marked rune wearing child of a rebel leader.
Yes. And
Imogen wants to murder her. Point blank.
and she kind of uses her powers in this battle to get the upper hand, even though she already has the upper hand.
Yeah. Definitely using her speed and all to get in her best shots. And Dane's like, hey, you can't use your powers, you can't do that. Everyone's trying to get her to yield. Violet does not want to yield. Violet wants to look strong. And she hears it again, the macabre sound of snapping bone, but this time it's hers.
Ugh. Yeah. And we know that what is it that I highlighted? Imogen, yes, in here is using her like super speed. That is not actually her like it's a lesser power. It's not actually her signet. It's just like a lesser magic is what they call it. So lesser magics are mage lights, a little bit of extra speed, the ability to use pens.
Ballpoint pens are magical now. As opposed to like quill dipped pens,
You know,
which like gives you a feel for worlds.
you know, Yarros, you're amazing, but this one I do judge you on quite a bit. But, you know, it's fine. It's fine. It's okay.
I find it hilarious though.
I can't remember any
Listen.
other lesser door
But
locking.
it's also like
Door locking.
the wards, being able to like create a ward around a door.
Yeah.
Opening things, kind of manipulating things without having to touch them. But we're then brought into the healer's quadrant, which is one of like the only other quadrants that we'll visit frequently as a rider, because we're constantly going to be injured. And upon entering the healer's quadrant, they look at Violet and they go, oh no, get Nolan. Nolan is not a healer. Nolan is a rider who is a mender.
They make a pretty good distinction
And he has,
between that.
because mending is a signet, it is something you get from your dragon. And Nolan's been mending Violet her entire life.
I see he's like the War College's mender. They really only have one because they're very rare.
Yeah.
And Brendan, her brother, was a mender. But they only really have just one mender. And it says, healers do not have magic, relying on the traditional tinctures and medical training to heal the best they can. But menders do. They have magic. Oh, and Dane doesn't want her to get mended.
And
Ooh.
no. And so this is like my big like fucking Dainatos moment. So they go there and Winifred, who is Nolan's wife, I want to say, like they're in whatever, immediately tells this other healer, like, go get Nolan. And if you don't get Nolan and he finds out that Violet was here, like, you're going to have to deal with his wrath. And you don't want to deal with his wrath. And Dane goes, no, don't get Nolan. Like, don't mend her. If she's not mended, we can get her to the scribes quadrant. And Violet, who at this point has drinking a tincture and is loopy AF, is sitting here going, I want to be mended. You need to shut up.
I'm not going to the scribes.
I'm not going to the scribes.
Scribes. Mend me.
And, like, Nolan's honestly kind of upset that she's with Dane and her, and Dane goes, I'm just her squad leader.
Mm-hmm.
Putting her under my command was all I could do to keep her safe. It's like, well, you're not doing a great job at it, are ya?
Right. They also tell her to, this is like a painful experience. They tell her to bite down on leather or something like that. Like, this is a painful experience being mended. And she also says that she will not be mended again by Nolan throughout this, like time of her being a cadet, that she's gonna heal naturally.
Amend me, but it's just this once. It's all like she is slurring her words. It's all put together. Dane is just sitting there like begging for her, like, Vi, don't do this. Vi, go to the scribes. Violet, think of me. Think about the pain that this is gonna put me through watching you get hurt.
It's giving Tamlin locking Farah in the house to keep her safe.
Yes.
It's giving stay here, stay with the wrong High Lord. He will keep you safe. It's giving that.
It's giving pet. But pet Claude saying it.
It's giving like, I want to marry you someday, maybe. So like, be safe. Don't die.
But like the fact that he actually does say that.
Is that he does? I actually think he does. Yeah.
He doesn't say marry me, but he's like, I just see like if we weren't both like in this position, like I do want to be with you. I'm like, ugh.
I like how too it's like,
No.
it's not even against the rules for them to be a couple. It's just frowned upon, and he's like, "Oh, well, can't do that."
Because Dane, if we have not established this already, is a stickler for this fucking codex, okay? If he could marry a book, he would marry the fucking codex.
He will not break the rules. Very clear.
Will not. And like will get mad at her when other people are like, hey, you need to get your squad in check, even if she doesn't do anything out of codex.
Right. Next we get the Book of Brennan. I'm very excited about this part. So
Yes, we do.
Mira writes her a note and tells her that she's leaving her this book that Brennan wrote her to get her through the Rider's Quadrant when he was alive. And with lots of tips and tricks on how to stay alive. And it's awesome.
It's amazing because in this book there's like a map of the college, and one of the things that he like even tells her was okay, so this is Brennan's first like note to Mira, and it was, you survived the parapet, good. Be observant the next few days and don't do anything to draw attention to yourself. I've sketched a map that shows you not only where the classrooms are, but where the instructors meet too. I know you're nervous about challenges, but you shouldn't be. Not with that right hook of yours, which again, we're talking about Mira. The matches might seem random, but they're not. What the instructors don't tell you is that they've decided challenges the week before. Any cadet can request a challenge, yes, but instructors will assign your matches based on weeding out the weakest. That means once the real hand-to-hand starts, the instructors already know who you'll be up against that day. Here's the secret. If you know where to look and can get out without being seen, you'll know who you're fighting so you can prepare.
Which, by the way, is very interesting because I'm pretty sure the first person they put her against is a super strong person, so they think that she's weak.
They wanted to either weed her out or push her to her best.
I also want to skip back just a little bit. This is where we learn about the tradition of having to burn all of someone's belongings when they die. So she says, or Violet says, it was my brother's. The words barely make it past my lips as I open the cover. Mother burned everything he owned after he died as tradition dictates. So, so one of the things that was fascinating me as I read through this book the second time was hearing about the gods, I guess, because it doesn't have to be in there. Like, they talk about Malik, they
Mm-hmm.
talk about lots of different gods, gods of death, gods of war, God, all this stuff.
War.
It doesn't have to be in there. And I am so curious about when they talk about gods. So I'm kind of on the watch for that, just FYI, and I'll be bringing that back with as we go because there's just a couple things that are a little weird. And also the fact that they have to burn everything someone owns when they die. Ugh, that's like a wink, wink, and a like, that's sketch.
Why?
That's really sketchy.
That is the biggest why I have is why are we burning everything? In a world where you have scribes to keep such careful like notation, you have this like giant archive, and we'll learn more about the archive and like how it's built to make sure nothing is lost. Why are you burning all of someone's belongings, especially if they were to own like the only copy of a book? Cough, cough, hint, hint, wink, wink.
Yeah. Why, like, it it's sketchy. So there's no like family heirlooms. There's not like they have to burn everything. There's no like lore passed down from generation to generation. There's nothing. It's just burned. Nothing written. So,
Yeah.
just interesting. Um, yes. And then let's see. Okay, so this is a very important piece of information at the beginning of chapter 7. In the best interests of preserving peace with Navarre, no more than 3 cadets carrying a rebellion relic may be assigned to any squad or of any quadrant. In addition to last year's changes, marked ones assembling in groups of 3 or more will now be considered an act of serious conspiracy and held and hereby a capital offense. So the marked ones can't gather in 3 or more. It's against the law.
Is it stated in this? I knowing the 2 books that have been read, I know why it's against the law. Is it stated in this book why it's against the law?
I believe it's in this book. We haven't read it yet.
Okay. We just haven't read it
It's
yet.
not
then.
like super important,
Okay,
but
beautiful.
it's there, you know. I haven't really.
Yeah,
I haven't.
but it's
Yeah. I don't know.
it just is. So we're immediately now climbing rocks and trees
Foraging.
in the middle of the night for berries. And something that Violet points out is since Parapet, our squad is the only one in the quadrant not to lose anyone. But I know that's unlikely to last much longer in this ruthless school. But so far, all 9 of them, because there's 9 cadets per a squad, all 9 of them are still alive. But she's looking for these berries that will make an excellent weapon in the growing arsenal.
She's becoming a poison master. Love it.
100%.
And she climbs a tree to get these berries, and she even notices as she's climbing the trees that the grass is kind of stomped down in front of the trees, and she's like, "That's weird." And then she climbs it anyway, and then she sees Xaden coming her way.
But not only Xaden,
Others.
a whole bunch of marked ones.
She also says this.
Every marked one.
Yes, this quote is hilarious to me. Keeping myself on the opposite side of the trunk so they can't see her, and sticking to the shadows that wrap around me, I climbed down another branch.
Now, girl. What makes this even funnier, and I don't know if it's in the video I sent you or if it's in a video that I watched from the same creator because I kept scrolling through their page, is I found on TikTok this person, it's like, here are like some visuals for scenes in Fourth Wing. The visual of her in this tree is her like hanging upside down from a branch. Very obvious.
I don't see her hanging from a branch in this. I see her.
I don't either, but that visual made me
It's
laugh.
like not Spider-Man style, but like Katniss style is what I'm seeing. She also, so I think it says in this, like when her and Zayden talk next, what his signet is, right? So we can just kind of go out with that.
Yeah, he's a shadow
He's a
wielder.
shadow
They
daddy.
learn in after Shadow Daddy. Zayden, I would like you to formally meet Rylan, Resand. Resand, meet Zayden. Thank you very much for your service.
He's a shadow daddy. So that's you know, that's what's going on. So the shadows, the shadows are wrapping around her, and she has no idea that he's a shadow wielder. So she's like, whatever, I'm safe, I'm in the shadows. But really, like, he knows that she's there. Like, he's like, okay.
He is the one putting the shadows around
Uh-huh.
her.
And kind of hiding her from
And
the
so,
others.
yeah. So she is very much like eavesdropping in on this meeting, where this meeting is the marked ones being like, all right, who needs help with what? Like, who's going to be able to survive? And it's camaraderie. It's them wanting to look out for each other. And I think that's the first time we really see Violet going, wait, he's not a bad person. Like, he's just looking out for his fellow people. Maybe I have it wrong.
So one says that they need help with like fighting or whatever, and someone says he assigned someone to work with them. Another person says that battle brief is hard for them, and this is so. Listen to this, everyone.
Yes.
So they don't say why they struggle. They kind of he kind of cuts them off when he asks why, like, or why they're explaining why they struggle with it. And he says, "You learn what they teach you." Zayden says to the first year, his voice is taking a hard edge. You keep what you know, but recite whatever they tell you to. And then she says, "What the hell does he mean by that?"
Yeah. Um,
There it is.
keep what you know. If that isn't a little fishy fish, I don't know what is.
But the reader kind of skips it over because immediately they're like, when do we get to kill Violet?
Yeah. And it's also keep what you know. Okay, we'll keep me, and that could also be like we'll keep what you know in regards of like our side of the rebellion, what we think, whatever, right? It could be so easily written off. And again, immediately it's like, all right, so killing Violet happens when we she's no longer a problem when,
Yep.
and it's met with she is mine to take care of.
It also says he turns just enough for me to see his profile. It's almost like he's making eye contact with her without making, you know what I'm saying? Like he's like almost saying it to her. The scar that crosses his face as profile and the scar that crosses his face as he narrows his eyes at Imogen. I told you already, the youngest Sorrengail is mine, and I'll handle her when the time is right. And then also, you kind of get the sense that the marked ones are split with whether or not they want to kill, they think it's right to kill her or not. Who says? Garrick says.
Garrick will say, in case you didn't notice, she's in the same death sentence of a college. Seems like she's already suffering the same fate.
Yep, not her daughter punishing children for the sins of their parents at Navarian Way. Or wait, sorry. Her mom is responsible for the capture of nearly all of our parents, not her daughter. Punishing children for the sins of their parents is the Navarian way, not Tirish.
Zayden also adds in something a little bit fun. And this is, I'm just putting this out there of, don't forget her brother was Brennan Sorrengail, Zayden adds. She has just as much reason to hate us as we do her. We'll circle back on that a little bit later.
I can't even say anything there.
I can't say anything currently there.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so then she lowers herself when she thinks that he's gone, and he immediately like captures her.
Pops out the shadows.
Yeah. Scream and you
Scream
die.
and you'll die.
Yeah. Fucking Sorengale.
Oh my god.
And then she says,
let me guess, you
how
can
did
smell
you
my
know?
perfume.
Yeah, how did you know you can smell my perfume? And he goes, and he says, I command shadows, but sure, it was your perfume that gave you away. I love how snarky he is.
Oh my god, all my love for Xaden is coming back tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
And because then he immediately follows it up with, like, what? Atos hasn't warned you not to get caught alone in the dark with me yet? Like, he's a goddamn boogeyman.
Mm-hmm. Is this how you plan to handle me?
Eavesdropping, were we?
Mm-hmm.
But something very I want to take note of, and I'm trying to quickly scan and find the exact quote, but something that she'll feel here is a like prickling, an icy prickle in the back of her head.
It's right towards the end of the chapter. It's on the left, it's
Okay.
page 87, a little bit higher up. But they kind of like, they have like a conversation, right, about, sorry. He says, now I might actually have to kill you. So it sounds like he wasn't planning on it. Like he's like, oh, okay, well now I might actually have to kill you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because he wants to know if she's gonna like tell on them, because obviously what they're doing is against the law. And she goes, no, like you're just trying to do, like, it's a tutor group. Why would I tell on you for a tutor group? That's fucking stupid. But then she gets this. He looks at me like he's trying to see through me. Ice prickles my scalp. And in this reread, I have noticed that sensation happening several times whenever he's around. And it's like her body has become more aware of him.
And so
Is what I'm going to say for this point.
more on this in our like classified section, but also is it a connection that they have is all that we're gonna kind of preface it as that.
Leave it there.
He also says, fascinating, you look all frail and breakable, but you're really a violent little thing, aren't you? Love that. Love that.
Violent little thing. And it when I sent you the message going, Violent Little Thing's definitely a color name, right? I immediately said, oh wait, it gives me such like violent creature vibes.
I know, vicious little thing.
From Mountains Made of Vicious Little Thing, Vicious Little Creature, Vicious Creature. It's right here. From Mountains Made of Glass.
Yep. And I love that. That's one of my favorite things ever. So yeah, she basically establishes that she's not going to tell because she just doesn't think that she thinks that he's just trying to be helpful. So it's like, why would I tell on you? They would get in trouble for no reason. And then he says, it's no fun when you're expecting it, like to attack her or whatever. Now get back to bed before your wing leader realizes you're out of curfew. And she goes, what? You're my wing leader.
And he's gone. He's already gone. Talking to herself like a fool, but a fool with fonial berries.
Yep. And so she has the poison that she wanted. This is annoying. She wakes up the next morning and she opens her door and Dane. My chest tightens as I smile and I finish braiding my hair into a crown. Seeing him is the best part of my day, even the moments when he's anything but personable in public, even in the moments where he's consumed with trying to save me from this place. Yuck. Fucking Dane.
Fuck Dane. This is also where we basically are going to go into, she takes on the morning service, the morning duty, whatever, of breakfast, right? Because she's used to scribe hours and waking up early. And it will become very clear, because we'll go through a giant, like, time jump very soon of like, well, this week I battled this person and I used this against them. Of she is staying ahead of her challengers by poisoning them.
It's perfect. Okay, hold on. I have to get context for this.
But before all of that, we meet Professor Kaori in our Dragon Kinds class, where we learn about all the different dragon types and we get to see them. Professor Kaori's signet is the ability to kind of like project images that he's seen and has memorized. So he's showing off like a red scorpion tail. And he's talking about like their temperaments and what to do, because we are slowly coming upon the gauntlet challenge and presentation and threshing. So the cadets need to know how to approach these dragons if they even want to make it out of the veil alive, yet alone bond one of them.
I have a tiny little tidbit that I highlighted about the difference between Xaden and Dane. So
Yes.
Xaden had just told her with Jack Barlow, like just in their previous encounter, that she should throw a few daggers at his head. And Dane just is telling her now, you need to lay low with it's Jack Barlow. You need to lay low with that one. Avoid that pompous ass whenever you can, Vi. Don't give him an excuse to come after you. He's already responsible for too many names on the death roll. So then she says that advice is so different from Xaden's throw a few daggers at his head approach. And then right after that, again, Dane touches her face. So, anyway. So he asked her to steer clear of Barlow.
It has been weeks. It has been weeks since she saw Xaden in that clearing. I want to say it states that since last week grows. Yeah, so it's been at least a week. So hopefully it's not recent enough memory that he can see anything.
Correct.
Because his bitch ass would have already told.
Yeah. Anyway, so yes, then they go into the descriptions of dragons, which this is like fascinating, by the way, when you're looking back.
All the dragons.
Yes. And then also the dragons, we get like kind of a sense of like the dragons really are the superiority here. Like they're really in charge, even though it seems like the humans really like to create all of this structure and rules and whatever. It's really the dragons that have like the Hail Mary for everything. Like they get to decide really everything. And so the instructor says they don't share their reasons, and anyone who respects their life won't ask a question they're, the dragons, not willing to answer. So, and that's when talking about the wards, I believe.
We also learned that there are only 100 dragons willing to bond this year. But some might change their minds during presentation in about 2 months, depending on what they see.
We have. I mean, it's less than
299.
It's less than that at this point, but still.
Yeah.
And also, I find this very interesting that General Malgren has a black dragon. I find that super, super interesting because there's only 2 black dragons in known existence.
They're rare. Theoretically, the rarest dragon breed.
There hasn't been one born in the last century.
So there's Coda, which is General Melgren's, and then you have Terran, which Terran is the black dragon that we get to see through Professor Kaori's powers.
Projection, yeah.
And projection, and Terran is the dragon Jack wants to bond. However, we learned that Terran has not agreed to bond since his last rider died.
Yes.
Because Terran is such a powerful dragon, and his bonds are so strong that the passing of his last rider, which was Naolin, almost killed him.
Yeah. So they also say Naolin's signet was siphoning. So siphoning means he can pull power from somewhere else and put it and redistribute it. So that's super interesting. He also says he attempted to use that power to revive a fallen rider, which didn't work because there's no signet capable of resurrection, and depleted himself in the process. To use a phrase you'll become accustomed to after threshing, he burned out and died next to that rider. This seems super throwaway when you read it at first. It's not. It's not.
Because Violet later like stays back and she does ask, was it Brennan? Did he try to save Brennan? And Kaori does confirm that Neolin was trying to save Brennan, but we also get hit with the line of, if you resurrect someone, then you're a god.
Yeah, but again, interesting. So back, also a little bit back, this is like the description of black dragons. So they're also the most cunning. There's no such thing as outsmarting a black dragon. This one is a little over 100, which makes him about middle-aged. He's revered as a battle dragon among their kind, and if not for him, we probably would have lost during the Tirish Rebellion. Add to it that he's a Morningstar tale, and he's one of the deadliest dragons in Navarre. So,
they're cunning, but they're also, what is the word? I have it written down, I think. This is how you know my notes are all over the place. They're cunning, but they're also like a really good judge of character. I can't think of what the word is.
I'm thinking shrewd, but I'm not sure that that's your word or whatever. But
no, I know they say it in the book, and it starts with a D. And
discerning.
Discerning. There we go. They're one of the most discerning dragons as well, which is very interesting. They're the smartest and the most discerning, which is very interesting to know when we later meet Taryn. It happens.
Yeah, in our next section next week, I believe. So then they go to the mat again, and Violet throws a dagger at Jack.
I love it.
And Dane goes, "What the hell was that? I told you to lay low when it comes to him. You just piss him off even more." And then, hold up, there is so laying low is not getting me anywhere, I say with a shrug. There's no ignoring the prickle at my scalp, and I let my gaze shift to meet Xaden's. Ba-boom. Scalp prickle.
Right before that, she goes in italics, and I'll be harder to kill than he thinks. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
So basically, she ends up poisoning this dude that she's about to fight, and she wins, and she takes the dagger from him.
She sprinkled the berries into his omelet, whatever. Takes his dagger. She won, and we go through basically
like
a montage time change of all these different challenges that she's winning and how she's winning them with what poison she's dealing out until early September, where she was supposed to challenge Rayma, but she's been taken to the healers because she can't seem to walk in a straight line. I served it to her too early. Should I just, skedaddle? I don't have to do a challenge. But no, of course not, because that prickle of ice along my scalp, oh no, hell no. No, no, no. Xaden walks on the mat.
And the next chapter starts with "I Will Not Die Today" by Violet Sorrengail.
Violet Sorrengail's personal addendum to the Book of Brennan. And we're into chapter 9, which is our last chapter for this session. And it is the sparring match between her and Xaden. Sparring match, which we also get the lines of, "You are not attracted to toxic men." But honey, you're attracted to the most toxic of them all currently, which is Dane.
In which Dane says, a little out of her league, don't you think? Asshole. Relax, Atos, Zayden says over my shoulder, his gaze hardening towards where Dane is standing, where he always stands when I'm on the mat. She'll be in one piece when I'm done teaching her.
But that is really what does happen, is he is teaching her on this mat. They are sparring and he's telling her, like, if you wanted to kill me, you should have hit here, here, and here.
He's really trying to show her that, like, she can actually do hand-to-hand fighting and that she doesn't have to rely on poison. And while that's, like, a good, like, it's a good way to, like, get through school, it's not going to be a good way to get through life. And so he's really trying to get her to see the need to learn to spar.
Well, also, she can't always predict who her next opponent's going to be.
So he's catching her daggers, and then he says, "Stop throwing them. I'm gonna get them all. Stop throwing them at me."
It's just...
Oh, this is the first time he calls her Violence. Going for blood today, are we, Violence?
My name is Violet. I think my version fits you better. We're not done yet. And again, she learns, like, hey, don't trust everyone. Even someone who owes me a favor, especially them. But I'm the one who decides when to grant that favor, not you.
Which is like, whoa, okay, power move.
Power move? But also we will address that statement in the redacted section.
Yeah.
And that's what the rest of this chapter is. It's him showing her, like, hey, use your height to your advantage, use your speed to your advantage. Go for the kidneys, go for the kill shots.
Mm-hmm. And they end up in a precarious position. And she says, I swallow, refusing to think of other things that are a good fit at this angle. Wink, wink.
I mean.
And then this is the first time I think Zayden is really starting to also put into her head that Dane sucks. So he says, he's holding you back. Don't worry. Your little poisoning secret is safe with me. Zayden arches his brow as to remind me I'm the keeper of his secrets too. Then he guides our hands back to my ribs and slides the ruby-hilted blade back into its sheath. It's unnervingly hot. And then she goes, "You're not going to disarm me?" He goes, "No." This is a very important quote in this series. "No, defenseless women have never been my type. We're done for today."
Done. Mm-hmm. And then he immediately calls Daenerys. She could use a little less protection and a little more instruction.
Come on, Atos.
Get it together. And then Dane immediately says, "I'm just surprised he let you live."
Yeah, well,
I think we are in territory of Zayden slowly becoming Team Violet.
Yeah. Yeah. And
he later gets forced into the role, but he's slowly there.
Yeah. And so Dane is kind of freaking out about Zayden right now, and Violet's kind of almost thinking, like, well, what's the harm in Zayden right now? Like, he hasn't tried to kill me yet. And she says, she's reasoning with herself, do you think he could be plotting against Navarre and still have bonded Sigale? I ask, my cheek against his blanket. So she's, like, thinking, like, is he kind of evil or is he not? Like, is he fine? He might be fine. Because Sigale wouldn't let him, plot against Navarre, right?
Mm-hmm. And he even says, there's no way any dragon would have bonded Ryerson or any of the separatists if they weren't honest about protecting Navarre. But would a dragon even know if you were lying? I turn my head so I can see his face. Yeah, he grins. Kath would know because he's in my head. It's impossible to hide something like that from your dragon. So that's also when we learn that once you've bonded a dragon, they're in your mind. Like, they are now like fully a part of you in more ways than one. I can block him out too if I need to, and they'll teach you that after threshing. So they're in your mind, but they're not, you know, you can block them.
Sorry.
If need be. You're
Go ahead.
good.
That's why I was like, oh, what the heck?
And then we learned that Violet found mutilated flowers in her bed one day, but not just any flower. Violets.
She's like, whatever.
They're violets, Violet. And she does not give two shits. And Dane's like, this is a sign. You need to go. Professor, whatever his face that starts with an M, says that he'll take you to be a scribe and he'll keep you as a first year and he won't tell your mom. And she's like, shut the fuck up and let me live my life.
And she's like somewhat tempted by this and kind of keeps it in the back of her head, but she's not. She's not gonna do it.
She's not gonna let him know that. Because she says, I'm not a damned liability.
She says, this is my way out, and yet I don't want to take it. And then she says she'll think about it.
You've made it this far, a part of me whispers. And that's where we end the first week's chapters.
So this is when we get into the classified section. So this is where you dip out if this is your first time reading Fourth Wing, or you haven't started reading or finished Iron Flame as of yet, because there is a ton of plot twists that you do not want to miss out on reading for the first time. So bye-bye. Have fun. You are not welcome here.
To anyone who has not. You are welcome to rejoin us next week, up until this point. But again, goodbye, have fun. Everybody else, I hope you've read Iron Flame, because now's where the shit gets interesting.
Woo. You got anything you want to start on?
Oh my god. Okay, yes. So having read Iron Flame, having been through it, we do learn at some point in this book that, like, Sigil has bonded somebody in Xaden's family, and when a dragon rebonds to somebody in your family, that is not a good thing. It could mean two signets. It could mean you go insane. It could mean you just have heightened powers for one of your signets. And in Xaden's case, he has two signets. His second signet is an intrinsic. He can read people's intuitions. And having known that and rereading all of this and every single, like, aspect of this book up until they become bonded to each other through their dragons, all of those little ice pricks, to me, have been him reading her intuition. He, at the tree, wanted to know if she would tell. And that's how he knew she wasn't lying. At the challenges, that's how he finds out that she's poisoning people and what her intent is. There's no other way he knows this information.
Right. Oh, I'm mad at my headphones. Sorry.
You're good.
My laptop is like gonna die soon here, and I'm trying to get my, like, it plugged in without my microphone going out, but it is what it is, I think. Whatever. Can you hear me well enough?
Oh no. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so that's, I agree. I think that every time she feels a scalp prickle or anytime she feels like that, like, feeling, it's not, I think a lot of times I read it in the beginning. When I first read it, I was thinking that it was, like, they maybe were, like, fated or some bond that they had or whatever. But now I definitely think that it's his intrinsic powers that she's feeling.
Yeah. I mean, we have it when she's throwing the daggers at Jack. He was reading her thoughts. Oh, maybe to see, like, why she was doing it at the end of 8, because she learns he was poisoning everyone. It just keeps happening. I love it to death.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that this book of why does her dad own the only copy of the Fables or of Wyvern and Benin?
Yeah. Well, and we learn maybe next week, Rhiannon has heard the fables
Mm-hmm.
verbally.
We hear about this in the next set of chapters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's
So,
also one of those things where I'm also not convinced that her dad died of natural causes.
no.
No, I think he knew too much, and I think he was researching Wyvern and Benin, and that fable book, that those folklores are his research.
There's also the suspicion that General Soaringale is a Venin. We hear more about that in the next set of chapters. There's a little hint towards it, um,
Yeah.
which is interesting, and that's why people think maybe that's why Violet's hair is gray the way that it is.
So something else, another theory I've read on that as well is that maybe Lilith got really sick while she was pregnant with Violet, and because her dad was researching feather tails, we do learn that eventually that like he was doing research on feather tails and all before he passed as well. That maybe there was some kind of cure that came from a dragon egg, the egg itself, because we know that those eggs have magical properties.
Hmm.
And that's why there's like this emphasis of I know what you are. Whenever Taryn's talking to her, I know what exactly who and what you are, Silver One.
Hmm. It's also very interesting that Taryn. Okay, so Violet knows that Taryn knew her brother. Obviously, they were
Mm-hmm.
in service at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting that Taryn doesn't really talk about Brennan at all, and she doesn't really ask him about Brennan at all. And I think that that's really an interesting, like, avoided. Maybe that would have been hard for Yaros to write around the fact that Brennan's not dead. Maybe that would have been hard for her to write around, and then, Taryn would have had to have lied to
We
Violet.
also, yeah, and we also get that first little glimpse of Brennan's not dead while she's hiding in that tree, and
Hmm.
Xaden tells the other cadets, "Hey, like her brother is Brennan Sorrengail," which I know he doesn't go by Sorrengail in um Tyrandor,
Hmm.
but still, that's that very like first cough cough hit hint like she if she's anything like her brother, she can be trusted.
He also says anything like uh her brother was, or who Brennan was, or something like that.
Was
And he said that's how you know that he knows Violet's there, because he refers to Brennan in the past tense.
the past.
Mhm.
Well, and even then, you kind of get the hint of something different when he goes, "Your mom executed my father," and she goes, "Well, your father killed my brother. We're even." And he goes, "Not at all, because her brother's not fucking dead."
Mhm. Mhm. And okay, so let's go into okay, so you're thinking that Taryn's previous rider might have turned Venom and maybe is still alive, but the bond is broken between him and Taryn. And maybe that's
So
why
I
it almost
have,
killed Taryn, to break a bond
yeah,
made
so
with
I have
humans alive.
heard theories that Naolin is actually the great sorcerer, the super venom, whatever you want to call him, that is trying to get Violet throughout like the end of this book
Mhm.
and into the next one. And it would make sense in the sense of I don't fully recall them explaining how Brennan lived.
That's why they have a mental connection.
Yeah. All three of them are connected.
Because Nolan can speak into her mind. Or Naomi,
Yeah,
the
and she
Venom.
can also speak into and also into Xaden's because of Sigale, but breaking that bond or trying to break that bond is what, because we'll learn that, like, Taryn says, like, he can't go through losing another rider because of how strong of a dragon he is and how strong his bonds become.
Mm-hmm.
If he had to forcefully break that bond without his rider actually being dead, because we do learn that if you're a rider and you turn venom, you're no longer, like, bonded to your dragon's life, because we see Jack kill his dragon. Spoiler alert, Jack fucking Barlow becomes venom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In this book. We just don't see it in this book.
We might see it this time.
I am on the watch out for when this happens.
Uh-huh. But I think that makes
like,
sense as to why Nolan, or the venom, enters her dreams and stuff. Because he's tapping into that old mental connection that he had with Taryn and getting at Violet.
And they're also, like, describing him as this great, and when I say him, I mean this higher venom, as, like, this sorcerer, this master, which would make sense if his old power was siphoning. Because he would be able to control all these other ones.
Well, and who would be the best person at redistributing, like, taking power and then distributing it against, like, around to the entire army, right? Yeah, it makes complete sense. It is what it is. I think that's probably exactly what's happening.
I also find it very interesting that Taryn's original rider, Naolin's signet power was a siphon. And when, especially in Iron Flame, when we get to learn more about Violet's signet, somebody states that her signet is just pure power that she chooses to manifest in the form of lightning. But somebody even points out that she almost wields Xaden in a way. So I'm going to be keeping an eye out for that if I see any of that happening in Fourth Wing, where she's almost able to manipulate his own powers, not in a way a siphon does, but in the way of, like, she is just pure power.
Yes. Any thoughts on Violet's second signet?
Yes, because we are on signet watch, even though we don't really see it. Rebecca says it's not really seen until Iron Flame. Seeing that signets are based off of need. Violet needs several things. She needs to be powerful because she is convinced she's weak. She's been told by everybody around her who means something that she is weak. She needs power. She needs truth. She is constantly looking for answers, and she is constantly reciting facts to herself. Is she a truth sayer?
And Rebecca Yarros say that we are going to be disappointed by her signet. Like, it's not going to be, like, that cool, is what she said, I believe. So a truth sayer would be...
Okay, then she's going to be like if we're going to be disappointed, she's going to be like a distance wielder.
Truth saying is actually a good one for that. Like, it's a little disappointing. It's not, like, super big and fun.
No, but it puts her... I want to say truth sayer would put her almost in the line of an intrinsic, where, like, you can't lie to her. And I have so many things from Iron Flame that back this up. Mainly, Xaden always telling her, like, just... I cannot lie to you. Like, I will tell you ask the right questions. He constantly is telling her, ask me the right question. Or don't ask me that. Don't make me answer that. When she's asking about his second signet. That, and then we see at the end of Iron Flame, there is a very big, like, no of this world, and that is, like, you do not talk to a dragon that's not yours. You do not demand them to do anything. You do not ask. You do not approach them. However, at the end of Iron Flame, she approaches Kodo.
Coda?
Or Coda, whatever. She's approaching Coda, and she's telling Coda, like, I need you to go do this to help us. And he does it. He's helping her. And, like, you don't get that sense of that's who Coda is as a dragon.
Well, and that kind of brings me back to, why are the marked ones riders? I think that's Coda's doing. I think Coda is playing General Melgren.
I think he is as well, but I want to say that, did it Xaden, because he has all those scars on his back. There's 106 scars for the 106 rebel children. where part I want to say he took a deal with Lilith that she allowed them all to have a second shot by being writers, and he would be responsible for them. And then that's why it was such a big thing that he says that he decides when his deals are called in, because he didn't with Lilith, and now he's having to protect Violet for her first year because Lilith said, I'm calling in my deal, you are to protect my daughter. And that's also why Lilith is not afraid of Violet entering the writer's quadrant, because she knows that Xaden is duty bound, honor bound, to make sure she survives.
Right. And the only thing she basically has to do is, like, go past the parapet, basically. Do you think if she were to
she
fall,
has to make
that
it past the
Xaden...
parapet on her own.
Do you think Xaden, if she were to, like, fall or lose her balance, that Xaden would have helped her with shadows or any, or was Imogen around?
I don't think Imogen was around, but I also think that part of the original deal was Violet had to make it across the parapet on her own.
Got it. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. What other things were brought up during this? Dane touching her is just bullshit. Which just is what it is.
Yeah. That's straight carte blanche.
Obviously, the scribes, well, not the scribes, the government structure is just bullshit. So, like, the whole, like, I just don't know who is controlling the information. Like, who is creating this sense of, like, we have to control what the public knows. Is it the, like, General Melgren? Is it the king? Is it their dragons who are telling them what to do? Like, who's actually in control here?
I don't think so. The dragons are in control in the sense of, like, the peace of their own kind. They really don't give a shit what the humans do as long as it doesn't affect them. Mm-hmm. And we do start to see that in these next set of chapters when, you know, they're deciding if Violet gets, they being the dragons, decide if Violet gets to keep Indarna and Terran both.
Mm-hmm.
But also, who knows? I think it's Melgren. I get bad feelings from Melgren. I always have. Mm-hmm. Is he the secret big bad? I also think when you pointed out that Lilith was the one to send that message about watching their parents die. You know who watches their parent die in Iron Flame?
Violet.
Violet.
I actually,
Violet,
like,
as her mom said,
always kind of thought of her as, like, bad, General Sorrengail, but I actually, now in my reread, am realizing that she's actually probably a good guy.
I think she was trying... So she has, and we learn later that, like, she has one of these rune daggers on her desk that killed the Venin. So she is obviously aware that Venin are an issue. She's probably been aware since her husband was alive.
I'm wondering if she's the one who tipped off her husband and he started research.
The research?
Yeah, so, like, maybe
I wonder that.
Maybe she saw them in the field and was like, what the fuck is this? Basically. And then he, as a scribe,
did the research. Mm-hmm. I also wonder if a lot of what she's doing is trying to keep her kids safe. And, you know, I think she does know that Violet has that Fable book and that Violet knows enough about them that she is pushing her to be a writer because she knows her daughter can make that change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's all fascinating. It's all good.
Is it January yet? Can I read Onyx Storm yet?
Yep. Yeah. It's a lot. So, yeah, there's so many things when rereading. Like, I highly recommend if you're not doing the reread, If you've already read both these books, I highly recommend doing a reread because it is fascinating. I literally wanted to highlight in the first like chapter every word because everything was like important. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And then this happened and this happened and oh my god, wait, what?
Hmm.
It kept going.
Hmm. You have anything else for our classified section?
I think that's all I got for the first 9.
All right. I guess we will be seeing you guys next week. Lots of love, and we are very, very excited about this one.
Yes.
There we go. I don't know if I want to do the second